The IRCAM scrub oscillator is similar to the IRCAM stretch oscillator in that we can play our samples back at higher and lower pitches than the root note while still maintaining a good quality. But the scrub oscillator is more tailored, as the name implies, for experimenting with scrubbing our audio at different start points, speeds, and directions. This is definitely an oscillator where you'll want to experiment with assigning knobs on your controller to the parameters below here, these first three in particular, and manipulating these in real time. You can also experiment with assigning different modulations to these parameters, like envelopes and LFOs. We have familiar controls in the analysis, remix, and options sections, and we cover these in the IRCAM stretch tutorial, so I'll just briefly cover these at the end of this video. For now, I'd actually like to assign these first three parameters to knobs on my controller so we can manipulate these by using the external controller in real time. So in order to assign knobs on your external controller, just right click, MIDI learn. I will turn the knob that's been received, and we can see that I can adjust that now with my external controller. Let's right click this one, MIDI learn. I'll use a different knob. Okay, so I've got all three of these now assigned to discrete knobs on the Atom. And actually, let me Alt click to take these back to the defaults so that we can just hear our audio sample as it is initially.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulties.
Okay, that is the root note, C3. So that is the original pitch and speed of this audio sample. If I play an octave up,
We will return to scheduled programming shortly.
We will return to scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulties.
and an octave down. So you can hear that the speed of the playback remains the same whether we play higher or lower notes. This is similar to the behavior with the IRCAM stretch oscillator. But now that we have these three parameters assigned to our controller, we can play back and experiment with the speed, position, and direction here.
We will return to your schedule.
So you can hear we have kind of a robotic vocoder type effect when I play back chords here. So since we are stretching the audio, then we can trigger more than one note at a time, and they're all going to play back at the same speed. So that's one of the cool things that you can do with the scrub oscillator. So I can even just have playback remain static on a particular grain, a group of grains, since I'm playing back three notes, and trigger chords with this. If we put a bit of delay on this, we're getting a little bit of clicking, so what we could do is come to the amp envelope for our oscillator, and let's just raise the attack up just a little bit. Let's take the dry wet down just a little bit. Now another thing that we can experiment with is adding modulation to these parameters. So let's start with the position here and right click and add modulation. We'll start with, let's say, well, we want to put this internal. Let's add it to the layer section. And let's add a multi-envelope. And we can see that that pops up here in our modulation section. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click to add some more points in here. Let's start making some adjustments. Okay, and so all of these adjustments are going to affect our position. So let's scroll down so we can see how this is going to be affected. I'm just going to play back at the root note. We can see our movement there. Let's slow the speed down. Add some smoothing. The bipolar on. Now we also have offset and ratio controls, which we could make use of here as well. Okay, if we'd like to unassign a modulation, then we would just go to clear modulations. Let's actually try out an LFO really quickly. Add modulation. Let's again put that on the layer level, new LFO. We are taken to a sine by default. We can see we have controls for phase, frequency, depth, delay, rise, smooth, and bipolar. Let's trigger at the root note. So it's moving pretty slow because our frequency is at 0.5. Let's increase that. Let's take our ratio down and the depth. Let's change the position. All right, and we can also change this to different LFO types. Let's choose the random here. Increase the rate. Smooth it out. Okay, I have to remember to stay on track here because I'm getting lost in experimenting. Let us remove this LFO and let's lastly try a step sequencer. So I'm actually just going to get rid of that there, coming into our position, and we want to add modulation again at the layer level, and we have step envelope, so step envelope, not sequencer, but now we actually have a variety of presets that we could choose from here. We've got rhythm, basic, spline, triplet. Let's just pick a random one here, fuchsia. Let's put that on bipolar. Slow it down a little bit. Smooth it. Let's try move through a couple of these presets. Okay, so I got a little lost in experimenting with the step envelope here and this scrub oscillator. Let's go ahead and remove this step envelope and just finish out here with the last controls. And again, we did cover these within the IRCAM stretch oscillator, so we're just going to briefly touch on these. The analysis section is going to help you kind of play with some of these settings to achieve a higher quality. So the window sets the size of the sampling window for grain size. And then we have padding, which is going to allow you to turn on oversampling. We have a setting of 1, it is off. We can also choose 2 or 4 times oversampling. We then, keep in mind, these are going to be CPU intensive. We also have overlap, and overlap determines the relative amount of grain overlap. We then have a remix section. This is going to be off by default. Let's see. Let's get our playback to back to normal. Okay, so let's
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly.
activate the remix. The sign is going to allow you to control the harmonics of your sample.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently.
If we take the noise and transient down,
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly.
we just hear the harmonics of our audio sample. Then we have noise. Let's just leave that one up.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly.
Then we have transient.
We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical difficulties. We will return to your scheduled programming shortly, or we are currently experiencing technical.
All right, that is the remix. And then at the end here, we have options. So this again is going to allow you to use these parameters to potentially improve the quality of your audio. Transients can be used with rhythmic samples. We then have envelope, which is going to potentially help with pitch artifacts and kind of mitigating some of those. We then have stereo, and this locks the phase between stereo channels. And finally, we have shape, which can help preserve the character of monophonic sounds that you may have loaded. And with that, we will wrap up our tutorial on the IRCAM scrub oscillator in Falcon 2.